I bought a budget-friendly 8-foot by 8-foot golf enclosure from Carl's Place. I bought the most basic everything, including the most basic screen, and then around 6 months ago, I upgraded to this. This is a custom golf enclosure from Carl's Place. This is 16 foot by 9 foot, and it's got the most premium screen. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the differences between the two, as well as my honest opinions on both. Let's get honest. As always, links to everything will be in the description below. If you find this video helpful, please consider using them. It really helps this channel a lot. First, let me talk about the screens because not everybody watching may get the entire enclosure. So I'll talk about the differences between the screens, between the standard, most basic, and the highest end premium impact screen. Carl's Place actually lists the differences between the screens, and I found them to be really helpful and really accurate. The biggest differences is that the standard impact screen is going to be a little bit thinner, so it doesn't feel as premium, and it's a little bit more sheen so you can see through it, which isn't a great thing if you want the highest quality image. Some of the other big noticeable differences that I found was that the impact absorption was not as good. Now, 95% of the time, it's gonna be totally fine, but for 5% of the time when you have a really high spin, full power shot, you hit low on the screen and it comes flying back, bouncing back, it can be a little bit scary. I will say that, I'm not very athletic, but even for me, when it came flying back, I could see it. That didn't mean I can grab it like Spider-Man, but I could at least see it. I could at least duck and dodge out of the way. Now, when it comes to sound, surprisingly, the standard impact screen was a bit louder, actually noticeably louder compared to the premium impact screen. When it comes to using the standard impact screen, the lowest budget-friendly one on a projector, it was good. It was never in an ideal lighting environment. There was a bunch of light, the light wasn't controlled, it was getting all over the screen, but even then, I felt like I could see the image pretty well. The premium impact screen, which you're seeing right now, this one is thicker, it feels much more high quality. One thing I was surprised by is that it's still a bit sheen. Behind this in the top left corner, there's an emergency exit sign. It's about 12 inches away from the screen, and you can still see it clearly when there's no image up. Now, just so that everybody's aware, I moved the emergency exit. Well, the building owner moved it for me. It's just that the screen is too much of a hassle to move out of the way to take that sign down, so that's why it's still there. The premium screen is also better at impact absorption. If the economy one or the standard one was 95%, totally fine. This one I would say is probably 98 to 99% totally fine. Again, those high spin, low shots, those things can come springing back at you. But again, it's slow enough that you can actually track the ball and move out of the way or catch it if you're much more coordinated than I am, which is pretty much everybody out there. I was surprised by how much quieter the premium impact screen was. Than the standard screen. The premium screen, it sounds like you're just throwing it into a blanket, it's like poof. Whereas on the standard impact screen, it was more of like a boom, like that kind of sound. Not huge difference, but you do notice it over time. In terms of using it as an actual screen, about how well it holds up colors, again, this is not a light, ideal environment. There's a window over there. I've got 2 camera lights, video lights on my face right now. But even then, the premium impact screen does a really good job. Just remember what I said earlier, that it's not totally opaque, so you are gonna lose a little bit of quality on the screen compared to using like a home theater screen. But a home theater screen, they're not gonna hold up to golf shots really well. So I understand the compromise they had to make. I just wish it was totally opaque so you could get the best quality image off of the premium screen. I upgraded the golf enclosure because I started a new channel with some friends called Golf is Effing Hard. We're gonna try out some really crazy, weird golf experiments that I don't see anyone else doing. It's supposed to be entertaining, laid back, funny. Technically, you're doing better. You only conceded 1 time. We actually dropped our first video called Does Alcohol Make You a Better Golfer? Where we try golf when we're sober, when we're tipsy, and then when we're drunk.
I feel like Dan's not okay.
Is that okay?
And again, really laid back, really funny. I hope you guys check it out, get subscribed. Your support would really mean the world to me, and I really appreciate it. Some golf screen tips that might be obvious to you. They weren't to me, so take this as lessons learned. Don't ever use dirty balls on a screen. Don't ever use dirty clubs when you play screen golf. For obvious reasons, you're gonna get that muck all over your screen. Don't ever use colored balls on your screen either. Some of that paint can rub off onto your screen. I use green balls when I'm out because I see them better, and I decide to hit them on the screen, and it left the green paint on the screen. And those are noticeable only when the projector is off. When the projector is on and there's an image there, you can't really see it. The next pro tip is going to be, I really wanted Titleist Pro V1 balls to play with because I would never be able to use it out in the field because I would lose them really easily. It's a waste of money. But here in a golf simulator, I'm like, I could never lose them here, right? So I bought some. only to learn that Titleist Pro V1s leave burn marks in your screen really easily. Now, just to explain what this means, all golf balls will leave burn marks on your screen just because of the high rate of spin, it going onto the cloth like this. If you look at your screen from the side, you're gonna notice there are a bunch of ball marks. That's your ball spinning, leaving a burn mark on your screen. When the projector is on, again, you can't notice it. You only notice it when you look at your screen from an angle. There are certain balls out there, particularly the higher end ones, something about the coat that they use and their spin rate that they offer, that it just burns the screen easier than other lower end / mid end balls. You know what's never dumb? Leaving a thumbs up on this video if you're enjoying it. It really helps a lot. Moving to the enclosures, let's talk about what's the same, and then we'll move on to what's different between the DIY and the Pro enclosure. So both enclosures are going to have all their exterior frames exposed. And so if you hit them, the ball can bounce back in a really unpredictable manner. So I do recommend you either buy the foam inserts from Carl's Place or go DIY your own solution, because there's 100 guides out there on how you can do that. That's gonna be the best way to keep you safe in the event that you shank and you hit one of those poles on the inside or on the top. Carl's Place changed all their enclosures to be what they're calling a C-type enclosure, which means the screen, the golf impact screen, extends all the way to the ground. This looks so much better than their old black bar at the bottom version, and it also adds a lot more immersion for when you're playing golf, especially when you're putting. If you have an older style screen with the black bar at the bottom, Carl's Place does sell a conversion kit that you can convert without having to buy a whole new enclosure. Now, with these new C-type screens, there are some pros and cons. The pros I've already talked about, the biggest one being immersion. Especially when you putt, it just looks a lot better. And that's the second pro, is that it just looks a lot better, especially just as you walk by it. There are some cons though. The first one is going to be if you hit it low and fast, the bottom part of the screen, because of just the nature it's installed, it's gonna flap back more. So make sure you have it about 1 foot to 16 inches off the wall per Carl's Place's recommendations. I didn't do this because I don't hit very hard, so I only left it about 6 inches, but when friends came in here and they hit a lot harder than me, when they hit towards the bottom, I did hear a boom against the wall. So it did hit the wall a little bit. The second con is going to be if you have a raised surface like I do, where I've got gym mats in front of the screen, well, if you hit like 3 or 4 balls against the screen and you just leave the balls there, it's totally fine. But if you get like 4, 5, 6, 7 plus balls, those balls can start to push the screen back and it's gonna get stuck between the edge and the screen. So just something to be aware of. Some of the key differences between the two is that with the DIY golf enclosure, you're gonna be using, at least for the smaller ones, I don't know about the larger ones, but the smaller ones for sure are using 1-inch EMT pipes as their framing. And these are pretty manageable, they're not that thick. So putting it up yourself, cutting it and doing that is all doable. I was able to put it in my SUV, I was able to bring it home. I got a hand cutter and was able to do that. And with an 8x8, one of the big differences is, again, on these, it's one of the smaller enclosures. I was able to set it up and break it down by myself. It was a lot of work, a lot more work than compared to if I had just a friend, but it was doable just by myself. This is totally different when it comes to the Pro enclosure, which we'll talk about in just a second. In terms of the sides of the DIY golf enclosure, it does feel a lot more budget. It feels like the sides, it kind of feels like a plasticky tarp, but one of the pros of that plasticky tarp was that it was a lot more opaque, so light didn't come through the sides nearly as much. It was pretty much, light blocking. Also, if you get one of these more narrow enclosures, I highly recommend you get the side nets from Carl's Place. They've got a nice little stitching of Velcro on the side for you to attach it to, and it's just gonna save so many shank shots. Like my wall has been saved, so many things have been saved because of those nets. When it comes to the Pro Golf enclosure, again, I can't speak for the smaller ones, but bigger ones like the 16x9, this is a custom size that I have behind me. These are using 2-inch EMT pipes, which are a huge pain in the ass compared to 1-inch EMT pipes. With the 1-inch EMT, I was able to pick it up by myself at Home Depot, bring it home, use the hand pipe cutter. Yeah, it was a lot of work, but I could do it pretty easily by myself. With 2-inch EMT, they are significantly heavier. Do not buy the hand crank pipe cutter. That's what I got instead of getting electric or a motorized one. I should have just gotten an electric or powered saw, because that would have been so much easier. If you're gonna use the hand crank pipe thing, which again, don't, but if you are, you're gonna need a minimum of 2 people, one person to hold down the pipe while the other person uses their forearms like they've never used them before. And yeah, by the time you're finished making one cut, your arms are just gonna be wasted. Like, it's just so much work, it's so heavy, it's so tedious, and also you're going to definitely need a minimum of 3 people total to install these and 2 ladders. The pipes are just too heavy. With the 1-inch EMT that was 8 foot long, I could leave it pretty much hanging and it could dangle down. It wouldn't look great, but you know, it was light enough that I could do it. With the 2-inch, if you leave it up there, the whole thing is gonna collapse. They're just that heavy. So you need a lot more people, a lot more tools, 2 ladders in order to do the Pro Enclosure. Do not try it by yourself. For the materials on the sides and the top of the Pro Enclosure, it's using an actual fabric. It's really soft, feels really premium compared to the plasticky tarp on the DIY version. But one letdown is that it is pretty much see-through. If I stand right there on the enclosure and I look out towards the window, I can see the entire window. So if you've got a room, if the enclosure is gonna block windows and stuff, make sure you treat those windows with some kind of blackout, whatever, because the sides and the top are not gonna cut it. One final difference is that with the Pro Enclosures, there's no way to put up those side nets like you can on the DIY version. And that is a big deal because even with a 16-foot wide, okay, it could be a big deal, because even with a 16-foot wide enclosure here, I've still managed to leave a dent on that wall over there, and so has my friend. I recommend that if you or your friends aren't that good, if you think you're gonna shank it, maybe get a deeper enclosure. This is a 5-foot deep one. Maybe go up, step up and get the 8-foot deep, just to make sure you protect all of your walls and anything that might be on the outside of your enclosure. The customer service at Carl's Place has always been awesome. Anytime I had a question, they answered really quickly. They double, triple checked to make sure that I wasn't crazy about the size that I wanted, to make sure I had the right size, the right amount of space for this size enclosure, and they were really, really great, and I highly recommend them. Links again will be in the description below. If you have any questions, please ask them. I do my best to read and answer all of them. Until next time, stay honest.